everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Amanda Ostrander. I am a teacher-turned-homeschool mom, and this is Raising A to Z, a place where we talk about all things homeschooling. And today, I'm answering some of your questions. So I put it up, I sent out a request for questions and I got some back. So I put it up on my Instagram the other day. I did kind of an ask me anything situation, on the stories. And I got a lot of questions that were sent in through like the little story question box thingy. And then I also had a couple people DM me some questions. And I've gotten so many over the past couple weeks, I thought I would do like a Q&A session. And so these are all questions that were submitted by some of our wonderful subscribers and followers. And I'm going to answer them for you guys right now. So if you have any questions though, like anything you want to know, drop them down in the comments below. Or if you don't want to be public or whatever, you can definitely send them to me as like a DM on Instagram and I will answer your questions. And sometimes they might become part of a Q&A. Sometimes if it's a really in-depth question, sometimes it becomes a video because that's just the easiest way to answer it. For everybody, because if you're asking it, probably someone else is asking it too. So if you have any questions, drop them below. In the meantime, let's get started. I have a list of questions here and I'm going to answer them. Question 1, do you have a list of themes that you've done so far? Now, I live in Ontario where I do not have to keep records and I do not need to like prove my kids' learning. So I don't keep a lot of records. The one thing I do keep though is I do typically keep a list of like what curriculum books and things that we've used for each year, just so that I'm like not pulling out novels we've already read or things like that. And the other thing that I also keep a list of is the themes or unit studies that we've done. When the kids were really little, I kind of did more like a theme of the month. And then as they got older, it's kind of become more structured unit study kind of style. But I do have a list. I think I can post this list as a picture in the communities tab. I think I can. Anyway, I'll read it off to you what we've done so far and what the ages of the kids were at the time. And we'll go from there. When Alexi was SK and Zoe was like before she was pre-K, like age 3, that year we were still doing a lot of themes. So that year I started with a back to basics theme where we did like letters, numbers, colors, kind of like a refresher of all the things Alexi had learned the year before and introducing Zoe to all those things too. Zoe was basically just there for the ride that year, but she enjoyed, especially like she liked the reading and stuff. So first one we did was back to basics. Then we did like a fall autumn theme. We did the human body. They were obsessed with that. We did like a little scientist unit in January, which was fantastic. Because we basically just like had like a Crayola science experiment kit and we just did different science experiments and read about scientists. Super easy. They had a lot of fun. We did a zoo one where we learned about different animals. Zoe loved that because she's my little animal lover, but we just like basically read books about animals all month. We did a cities and community one. That was really, really fun. And then we did plants and seeds and bugs and insects. Kind of an intro to plants and seeds and bugs and insects. That's what we did the first year. The next year when Alexi was in grade 1 and Zoe was starting kindergarten officially, we did a couple different ones. We did famous women, like powerful women. We did dogs, dinosaurs, mythical creatures, fairy tales, oceans, weather, and butterflies. I would also plan on doing writers, but we never got to it because the kids got really sick that February and basically no one was healthy that whole month. So we didn't get to that unit, but that's what we did that year. The following year, in grade 2 for Alexi and SK for Zoe, we did habitats, nocturnal animals. That was a fun one. Electronics. We didn't do a ton on electronics because again, that was in February and we all got sick. We did plants and seeds again. We did food and cooking. I introduced Canadian geography. So like provinces, Canada is a country, oceans around us, stuff like that. We did do ancient Egypt that year, as well as an artist unit and a fashion unit. Those were all fun things that we did. So this year, Alexi is in grade 3, Zoe's in grade 1. So this year we did, not in order because my list is not in order. We did music and musicians, Canadian Indigenous people, pre-contact, writers and storytelling, history of holidays, bees, gems and rocks is coming up, birds is coming up. bees is also coming out technically. Fungus and mushrooms. And then we did a unit on the Brave Writer. We decided to test that out and see how that was as a novel study, and loved it. If you want a whole review on the Brave Writer, put a link here. That's what we did this year, or are going to do. There's still a couple months left in the year, but that's basically our unit studies that we've done. And I keep a list so that we don't repeat, because it's easy to start forgetting like the units that you've done. And sometimes units will come back up. So for example, we did human body when Alexi was in SK. We're going to do a human body unit probably next year and do like a much more in-depth human body unit. Next year or the year after, I'm not quite sure. But like we're going to get into like more in depth, because what you can teach a 5-year-old is much different than what you can teach like a 10-year-old. And what they need to know is very different. So I like to keep a list. I'm not necessarily a big, huge fan of records, but lists I do keep. Next question. What are some of your favorite themes or units that you've done? I'll give you my top 5, kind of one from every year-ish, not in any particular order. We love doing cities and communities. That was a really fun unit where we just like looked at like community helpers, like police, firefighters, who lives in our community, what communities have. So communities have houses, communities have apartments, they have to have a grocery store, they have to have all these different things, right? And then one of the things that we loved about that one was that like I laid out a bunch of like brown butcher paper or craft paper or whatever it's called. Yeah, craft paper, like the brown paper. I just rolled out like a huge, and I made it like double wide, and we rolled it out. And then we like had the kids design a town on it. So we like made our town ended up being a island, but we made like an island on it. And then they had to put things in, and they had to like figure out what do we need in a community. And so some of it they like drew on, some of it they built with like Connects and Legos and stuff. Then they had their cars, and that was fun. Ironically, you can tell we're homeschoolers because we built that whole village. And then when we got to the end, we realized we never put a school. And we only noticed that when Alexi was like looking for cars in her car bin to put on the road, and pulled out a school bus and goes, "Where does the school bus go?" And we're like, yeah. So clearly our island is just an island of homeschoolers, but that's okay. We included everything else. After that, I think we really enjoyed doing the powerful, famous women. So those are like women who have like changed the world kind of thing. I collect the Little People Big Dreams book series, and we basically just pulled all of the females out of the series, because originally it started as women only. So I had, I want to say like 25 famous, powerful women who've changed the world kind of books. And so I pulled those all out, and basically we read 1 or 2 every day for the whole month. And then we would like chart their lives on, again, pulled out my big brown paper, craft paper roll, and we like made like a timeline. So like Lucy Maud Montgomery lived from here to here. Anne Frank lived from here to here. Mother Teresa lived from here to here, like in terms of like the timeline. We could see who overlapped, where they came into like timeline wise, when they died, when they lived. And then we also used, so what we did was we used like washi tape, like the colored tapes, and we gave different women different colors depending on like themes. So like if they were a famous scientist, like Jane Goodall, I think it was like green. If they were political activists, they got like red. If they were artists, they got a different color. And so we actually like had this like really cool chart at the end that was like super cool. And so we really enjoyed that. Next we did oceans at one point. That was a really fun unit. My Zoe still talks about like the layers of the ocean to this day. I think that was like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And so we did that. And then we also like combined it with a trip to Toronto. So, again, my kids think everything's a coincidence, but I planned it for a March time so that we could go to Toronto over March break. And so that at that time we went to the aquarium and like did a field trip at the aquarium. And then we also went to the ROM, which happened to have like a blue whale exhibit. Was it blue whales or just whales in general? I don't remember. We did a whole video on it, so I'll put that link down below as well. But we went and we did that, and that was just like a fun like 2 or 3 days of like learning about oceans in person with like fish and stuff, on top of actually learning about oceans and theoretically with paper. Then we did ancient Egypt. We did that last September. not the September that just passed, but the September before that. And that was fun. I think it was like my kids' first introductions to like history in general, like history, not just like, oh, these people used to live, like history, like people lived a long time ago. They had different cultures and customs and religions and thoughts and ways that they did things. And so like they were fascinated, like riveted every day. And then at the end of the unit, we did a mummification. We mummified a Barbie. And we wrapped them. We made sarcophagus out of like cardboard and like clay. And then we like took the Barbies and we put them in a pile of salt. It was crazy. We put them in a pile of salt. And then we had to we set the timer for 40 minutes, each minute representing like a day. And then we had to let it sit, and then we had to take it out and we had to like wash it. And then I had like lavender essential oil, and we like bathed it in oil. They would have done it in like traditional oils and stuff. And then we wrapped it and we added like little like beads and charms, because that's what they would have done. And then we like put it in the sarcophagus that they had like created and painted and stuff. And that was fun. We love that. And then currently, our favorite unit, I would say arguably currently right now, we've done some really cool ones this year, but the one that they keep like getting excited about is the history of holidays, which I'm a history major. I think it's cool. I like to see how holidays have evolved and what they started off as and stuff. So this year we're doing something a little bit different, where there's like not a month for holidays or a unit study on holidays, but like every time a holiday comes up, we learn about it and we pull out like our books and we learn about what it's about and stuff. So it's a little bit more sporadic, but it's really fun. And they get really excited when we get to like learn about something new and a new holiday and stuff like that. We just did Easter and they really enjoyed it. You learn some cool things about holidays, things that I don't think a lot of people understand or know. And then we get to terrify our friends and family when we get to announce things like St. Valentine's Day is actually about celebrating the execution date of somebody. So then they just get to be like mortified. So that's fun. I enjoy it. And the kids like it because I pull up a lot of videos for those things. So it's fun. I'm noticing that a lot of our favorite ones are actually like things where we've done lots of kind of like really cool projects. Yeah, interesting. Anyway, next question. What's on the bookshelf behind you? I've never actually gotten that question, but I have a lot of people ask me, they're like, oh, you have a lot of books. People love books. I think I'm pretty darn close to having like an official library-sized library. Because I think you only need 1,000 books to be a library. But yeah, I got a lot of books. I will give you a quick rundown. Maybe I'll make a short of like what's actually on my bookshelves. Basically, I will give you the rundown from top this way to the bottom. Board games, lots of board games. I have like a little mini reference section / photo book section. There is one random bin of French curriculum at the corner. I'm probably going to sell that this year at the homeschool fair. Then over there, I have like a section that's like Christmas books. So those are all like, we don't pull those out except for at Christmas, but I like to keep it all together because it just makes my life easier. Then the rest of this whole second row is either reference books or novels. Like it's like bigger books, but that's what I call them, like big books. So anything from like thesauruses to like art guides. I've got a whole bunch of like novels, but then I also have like some of the Julie Rothman books or like just different big books. Then I have 2 rows of picture books. And then the bottom is all kinds of bins of toys. So it's an IKEA Kallax unit. It's a 5x5, but we have 2 of them. So it is 5x10. And so the bottom row has all IKEA Kallax bins, and it's got everything from Barbies to train tracks to cars to kitchen food, like play food. It's just got a bunch of toys in it. I'll do a bit more detailed walkthrough another time, but that's what's on my bookshelf. It is not, and I want to make it clear, it is not really organized. Like I basically go through it and just like pull books randomly as I need them. Like if I'm like, oh, I'm doing I need books on, I don't know, weather. I'll go through and see what I have in terms of what's on my shelf, and then I'll order the rest from the library. And then when I put them back, they basically go back kind of in a clump. So sometimes they're kind of clumped together, but for the most part, it's really random. So yeah, that's what's on my bookshelves. So the next question is, besides curriculum, what are some other ways to progress spelling? I'm basically going to say 4 things you can do to progress spelling. Number 1 is read. You're going to hear me say this. Anything that is literacy based, you got to be reading. So read. Read to them, read with them. Don't stop reading. Too many parents stop reading when their kids are starting to be able to do it themselves. That is the worst thing you can do, because then you show them that reading is not important and you're not going to be able to see how they're doing. And you reading to them it's just so vital. It's so vital. You need to read. So just read to your kids. Read with them, read to them. And when you're reading, if you are reading aloud, I highly always recommend that obviously if they're like, hey, I really want to read this picture book, read it. But if you're like, hey, we're going to read this book and you guys are reading together, try to pick a book that's above their reading level. So something they cannot necessarily read themselves, that would be too hard for them. That is the key. So if you're looking for, if your kids are reading Magic Tree House, you're going to pick a book that's a little bit harder than Magic Tree House, and that's what you're reading aloud to them. That way you are increasing their spelling, their vocabulary, they're seeing bigger words, they're hearing bigger words. That is key. The next thing you're going to do is write. It's one of those things where you practice. You got to practice writing, whether that is with pencil and paper, whether it is typing, whether it is text to speech. If you're practicing spelling, you probably want to do either typing or writing. But you want to be writing all kinds of things, writing notes, writing lists, writing stories, writing jokes, just allow writing, and not writing for academic purposes. Just make writing a writing thing, whether it's, like I said, making a grocery list, writing in a journal, just writing for writing's sake. And because the key thing that you want them to do is to realize that what they're writing is important, what they're writing has power, and that in order for those words to be important and have the power, they need to be spelled properly. And we want them to build that love of writing so that they can get their words out. The third thing that I always say is, if your kid asks you, how do you spell this? Ask them, how do you think? So if you have a kid who comes to me and is like, how do I spell this? Or how do I spell that? You just go, how do you think it's spelled? And then have them spell it out for you. So that works in 2 ways. Either A, they're going to get it correct and you can build their confidence because you're like, that's a really tricky word. That's impressive. You spelled it correctly. Or B, it becomes a learning opportunity and you can explain what they spelt and why it's not correct. And let's find out some strategies. So for example, let's say they want to spell the word plane, like airplane. And they come to you and they're like, how do you spell plane? You're like, how do you think? And they're going to go Plan, P-L-A-N, right? Because we're using our phonetic sounds. You're like, well, that's not quite correct. What you spelt is plan. Now let's listen to the word plane. It has a long A sound. So typically words don't have the long, says its own name sound unless 2 rules are happening. Either it's 2 vowels that are going walking and the first one's doing the talking and saying its own name. So either we have that situation or we have the power of the E situation where the E is at the end of the word and it's giving its power to the vowel. So let's look and see. And then you'd spell out P-L-A-I-N. You're like, this is plain. It has the 2 vowels going walking in the middle, the A and the I. But this is plain, like I'm going to have some plain yogurt. So it's not that one. And then you're like, so what could it be? Oh, it's got to have an E. That's right. P-L-A-N-E. The E is silent and it gives its power to the A to make it say its own name. So now you've introduced your kids to figuring out how to break down words and how to rebuild them. The key to that though is not doing it too often. So if your kids are doing a writing activity and they're having to write out a lot of words, I would limit that to 2 or 3 words per writing activity and then just spell the rest out for them because you don't want them to become discouraged, especially if they're reluctant writers. Definitely have them break down the words and you help them with how do you think that's spelled. And then lastly, we got to talk about games. You got to gamify it. You can definitely use things like crosswords, word searches. Word searches are actually, people are like, oh, they're so simple. I'm like, but the thing is, word searches are teaching kids to look for letters in a specific order. They're not just random letters. And so especially younger kids can start making the connections that when I see letters that are in this order, P-L-A-N-E, it means something, and finding those connections later on. Crosswords are great. They're a little more cerebral because you have to like figure out the code, especially if you have younger kids. I always like recommend to have one that has like a word bank just to help them, or have like an answer key somewhere where they could like solve it so they're not completely unable to do so. But great options and really inexpensive. You can find them everywhere. Other great options would be, so you could do things like Wordle. Wordle's a really great game. I know a lot of teachers who use Wordle. And it is great because you're limited. It's a game, but you're also like, you have to use your phonics rules and rules you know about letters to figure out what the words are going to be. So it's a really great game. It's fantastic. And then we can also talk about like classic games. I would show you Bananagram. I don't have it. My kids took it to go play, which is fine. But Bananagram's great. My kids are big fans of Scrabble. This is Scrabble Junior, which is great because it has the words already on it for younger kids. But then if you flip the boards over, it's a standard Scrabble board. So there's that option. And then this is another really fun game that my kids love, especially Alexa loves this. Wordical. It is like you roll the dice and you have cards and you're trying to make a word out of the cards. So the dice have vowels and then you have consonants on the cards, and based on the vowels that come out and you roll them, you're trying to make words with the consonants in your card, and you get points. So you get bonus points if you're first. Then there's also points on the card. So it's kind of like a cross between Scrabble and a dice game. Anyway, it's really fun. My kids really enjoy that. So yeah, you definitely gamify it, because whenever we can make learning fun, we should do that. And it's just really, really awesome. So I'm going to call that as part 1. We have a whole bunch more questions that I can definitely get to, but I think we're going to just like end it there for now, and we can come back with more questions next week. Thank you so much for watching. Why don't you guys consider becoming members to this awesome YouTube channel? When you become a member, you get all kinds of cool benefits and bonuses. You can also make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you get notifications when the next one comes out. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week.